A miniature is a condensation of something larger. I don't do insects. I don't do things that are naturally tiny. I make things that are larger, smaller. You can actually hold these things in your hands. It's an easier thing to grasp, and it's not threatening either. You become like a vessel of it. It's really important, the connection between the hands and a miniature object, and I've been exploring it for 15 years. I'm Steve Tomashek, and I'm a professional whittler. You know, no one grows up thinking they're going to be a whittler. I got started in wood carving when I was a kid, probably around 12, 13 years old. And it wasn't until college that I really took it up as a full-time hobby, as something that I wanted to do every day. And at one point I decided I really want to carve everything. It wasn't until the third or fourth year of college that I actually started doing this every day. And at first I wasn't all that good, so it wasn't like I stood out. You know, I was just the guy that had the bandage on his hand. My carvings range in size from about 1/4 inch up to about 5 inches. I've probably made almost 10,000 carvings. The miniature menagerie is a collection of exotic creatures. It's kind of a loose term. It doesn't mean that I'm building an ark or anything like that. I just have a collection of animals that I'm making, and that includes monsters and beasts, but also stuff out of my own imagination, whatever I can come up with. There's miniature objects all around us. It's just that I'm taking the time to make them special. I'm doing them one at a time, and I'm using my hands to do it. You want to make sure that he's looking right at you. Whittling is usually the preserve of young kids and old men, and I just decided to fill in between. The artists that I draw on the most are cartoonists. I grew up with Dr. Seuss and Gary Larson in The Far Side, and I think I see that in my work. You can eat your props after you're done taking the picture. I come from a background of wanting to entertain or to have something funny going on and be playful. Each carving that has turned out well, there's a lot of drawing behind it. There's a lot of practice. I'll draw a full page just of one animal, say, and just to get certain aspects of it right, how I want to see it, before I even cut out the wood. You know, I notice when people see my work that most of them have a very positive reaction to it. Sometimes it makes them happy, sometimes it makes them laugh. I always enjoy that at shows when I have a booth full of people that are joking or laughing and pointing out stuff to people. I get a kick out of that too. There's only so many pieces of artwork that you can hang over the couch or over the mantle. Some of my artwork, it's hung in bathrooms, and I don't care where it's hung as long as people are looking at it and it's making them happy. And that's what I get from customers. They come back and they say, well, this this picture, I have it hanging here, and it makes me happy every time I look at it. See, this is a mustache. One way I might start a carving is just to look in my box of wood here. A lot of people tell me that I must have the patience of Job to be able to do this, but I've always thought that something that's larger would require more patience because it takes longer to complete. These are the two woods that I use primarily. This is basswood and this is boxwood. And they're both very straight grained. There's not much figure to them. And they're both very dense. Working on detail requires very fine motor skills, but I'm sure that it takes very fine motor skills to work on something larger as well. It takes good eyesight, but there's magnification. So I'm not sure that it's more difficult. It's just a perception of being more difficult. When I first start carving, I use this larger knife, and it takes off a lot of material very quickly. That's why I don't cut out all the little things with a saw, because I can do it pretty quickly just with a big knife. I've done some work in clay, but I don't like what I can do with it. I don't know, I guess I'm different in that way. I see a block of wood and I can figure out how to manipulate it. Once you hold something in your hand like that, it's different than other pieces of artwork because all of a sudden you are the pedestal upon which this sculpture sits. You aren't just looking at it in a museum or looking at it on a wall, it's in your actual hand. There's a reason that people back in ancient times were not building large sculptures of humans or huge sculptures of animals. They were building things that were portable and packed with meaning. And that's what I'm trying to do even today. I feel the whole timeline of my craft behind me. At one point I have one foot in history and one foot somewhere else. Recently I've gotten into making short animated pieces that I put on my website. I've done about 6 movies so far. These are small things, they're like 30 seconds long, but they do take a lot of work. You have to make sure every picture is good and that they line up and that you don't mix stuff up in between. It's just been a fun thing to do. I notice when I'm carving, it seems like I feel almost desperate in trying to get something out of wood. That challenge has a payoff because at the end, I'm the first person to see this thing having come out of wood. I'm actually holding a piece of wood and seeing it come alive in my hands. Carving is a lot like meditating. You can get into this zone, and especially in miniature, where you are almost in a different world. I can make almost anything that I can imagine. I used to stay at home on the weekends whittling, and I'd be thinking to myself, what better thing could I be doing right now, you know? And it sounds kind of sad, but I really like whittling.